Hi, my name is Gene Jordan. I work at Broomtioga BOCES, and I'm going to give you a module overview of the grade 8 module, first one. As you can see, it's a small module. It's the first one, of course, in grade 8 out of 7 modules, and it will look at those 20 days and give you just a brief overview of it, some of the instructional practices. As you can see, there's two topics. After the first topic, you might consider a quiz. There are 6 days of instruction there. There will be a mid-module assessment if you want to use that. A beautiful formative assessment we'll talk about in a little bit. Here's what the lessons look like. Today I just want to talk about the instructional approaches briefly, look at some of the lessons, and articulate the connections from previous content. So let's start with the lessons. There's types of lessons: problem sets, exploratory, Socratic, and modeling. I think problem sets are probably the easiest to explain. You're simply working through a series of examples. Exploratory usually challenges or activities or exercises, and they comprise the majority of the lesson. Socratic discussions, 10 minutes or so, and you're looking at a big idea and you're going deeper with it through a discussion. And modeling, that is integral to mathematics, especially in the high school, where you're having ill or well-defined tasks, and then the students have to provide the structure for that to solve it using hand-drawn models usually, or other models that help them solve real-world tasks. The problem set. As you can see, this shouldn't look too unusual to you. You're looking at a series of problems that will give the students individual practice with the work and the concept that you developed today. The Socratic discussions. These can be tricky, in my opinion. You have a topic and you're looking to discuss it with the students by asking and posing questions. The principal idea is that you're connected to prior learning and extending their ideas through a discussion. For example, you're going to have a addition concept that the student should be very familiar with. You're going to lead them into that multiplication, which will lead them right into exponents. So in this case, I'll let you go ahead and read some of the slide. We add 4 copies of 3. Can't get simpler than that. 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. Then you're going to go ahead and say, what if we get 5 copies of that sum? See those 5 copies right here. And then let's say we take the definition of multiplication and understand that 4 copies of 3 can be denoted by 4 times 3. And adding 5 copies of this product denotes 5 times the product 4 times 3. So we get 3 in expanded form added together. A closer examination of the right side of the above equation reveals that we are adding 3 to itself 20 times, i.e. that adding 3 to itself 5 times 4 times. Therefore, 5 times the quantity 4 times 3 is equal to the quantity 5 times 4 multiplied by 3. A beautiful illustration of the associative property, or commutative property, if you will. Now, replacing repeated addition with repeated multiplication, you're going to have the same idea, but you're going to end up with powers. What is multiplying 4 copies of 3, then multiplying by 5 copies of the product? That's the question you're posing to the kids, and you're going to discuss working it through. If any of you are familiar with a numbers talk or a math discussion, this is the type of interaction that would be occurring. Multiplying 4 copies of 3 is 3 to the 4th. Multiplying 5 copies of the product, 3 to the 4th raised to the 5th power, we wish to say this is equal 3 to the x for some positive integer x, so it's that unknown quantity. By the analogy initiated in lesson 1, the 5 times 4 and 5 times 4 times 3 should correspond to the exponent x and 3 to the x. Therefore, the answer should be 3 to the 4th raised to the 5th power equals 3 raised to the power 5 times 4. And I'll go ahead and leave the math to speak for itself. only because we are short of time, but I wanted to give you an explanation of the Socratic discussion because it was new to me and maybe some other teachers. But that is an abbreviated discussion for that process. Now, numbers raised to the 0th power. This is an example in lesson 4. If you turn to lesson 4, you'll see the exploratory lesson where students are working their way around to prove to themselves that a power, any number raised to the 0th power is 1. And that the explanation is a great example and a topic that's often summarized or quickly gone over, but this adds a little depth to it. A gallery walk. Now, when we were having the lesson in the modules, we were told we actually did this. But it's a walk where they're moving around the room, often with a poster paper, and you're going to go ahead and learn, and they're going to learn from a problem set that other students did. It's called also a carousel structure, I believe, and it's another example of a movement piece or cooperative learning piece that you'll see within the modules. The key points for the learnings within the modules are that the law of exponents are dependent upon a clear definition of exponential notation. They're going into the scientific notation where it will become with large difficult numbers with varying degrees of complexity for exponents, and you'll really need to understand the logical sequence that gives the topics coherence. Of course, it begins with the whole numbers and then moves on to integer exponents, but it relies on them having a clear understanding of the laws. So it's definitions, 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 and hopefully with that, the students will have grasped some of the main concepts of exponents in a deeper way. Now, before you go on and wrap up the unit, I want to talk about the mid-module assessment. That's sort of tricky as well because it doesn't look like any assessments I've seen in 8th grade. And let's look at it a little more closely. The first thing you might want to ask yourself is which standards will assess. It's important to keep in mind that the standards can't all be assessed probably on the same assessment equally. So there's going to be priority standards, but many questions will pull multiple standards. The assessment itself, you will notice that they are lots of words, lots of white space. Well, some of you might like more white space, but there's white space for the student work and explanations. There is not, however, a lot of math structures given to the students. They're expected to come up with those. Hence the modeling that you'll see that's that 4th component of the lesson types. That modeling and the writing and the discussion of the math is supposed to allow them to give them the verbal answers or the written answers that they'll need for these modules, given that it's all white space. Within every assessment, they have a 4-step rubric that's really a progression towards mastery, not meant to be as a point rubric. I think it's something you might want to look at before you ever grade to give consistency to your assessment grades, or how you evaluate them. Rubric scoring, let's move on from that because the scoring of the rubric of the mid-module assessment really is up to you as a school district and as a teacher, but because it's based on a sometimes subjective thought, I'd want you to be able to see that the rubrics are there to bring you consistency is what I guess I'm trying to say. Now, if you have any more questions, feel free to give me an email, but I also have provided the original link to these modules in the presentation itself that is part of the Network Team Institute, and those are linked there. You'll see all the middle school and 9th and 10th grade module PowerPoint explanations. Those slides are running 50 slides, so I definitely compressed it here to give you a brief 10-minute overview. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me or check my own website. Have a great day, and thank you for listening.